March 11, 2010. The thin morning light had barely begun to filter through the windows of Larkridge High School when Arnold Keene, the head janitor for 27 years, made his way down the second-floor corridor. His worn cart rattled against the linoleum, the familiar sound echoing through the empty hallway as it had every weekday morning for nearly 3 decades. 7:20. Right on schedule. Something felt different that morning. Maybe it was the unusual chill that seemed to cling to the building despite the heating system's steady hum. Or perhaps it was the unsettling silence. Schools were never truly quiet, Arnold often thought, even when empty. They held whispers of conversations, echoes of footsteps, the residual energy of hundreds of adolescent lives. But today, the silence felt heavy, expectant. He reached room 214, Mr. Rives' classroom, and fumbled with his extensive ring of keys. The geometry teacher was meticulous about his room being locked. Numbers have power, he'd once told Arnold with that sardonic half-smile. Best keep them contained. The lock clicked open. Arnold pushed the door with his shoulder, already reaching for the light switch with practiced familiarity. The fluorescent lights flickered to life, illuminating the neat rows of desks, the carefully aligned textbooks on the shelf, the geometric models suspended from the ceiling, and the slumped figure of Leonard Rives at his desk. At first, Arnold thought the teacher had fallen asleep grading papers. It wouldn't be the first time. But something was wrong with the way he was positioned, unnaturally still, head resting at an awkward angle against the polished wood. "Mr. Rives?" Arnold called, his voice sounding strange in the silent room. No response. Arnold moved closer, his footsteps suddenly loud in his ears. That's when he saw it, the dark pool spreading beneath the teacher's right shoulder, the deep crimson stark against the pale blue of his button-down shirt. 2 small tears in the fabric, clean and precise. Not tears. Punctures. Arnold didn't touch anything. Instead, with trembling hands, he backed away and pulled the walkie-talkie from his belt. "Get Principal Harmon," he managed. "Room 214. Now." Within 30 minutes, the school was crawling with police. Yellow tape cordoned off the second-floor corridor. Students arriving were redirected to the gymnasium, where confused whispers and wild theories spread like wildfire. Detective Sandra Morales ducked under the crime scene tape, her experienced eyes already cataloging details. 23 years on the force, 15 in homicide, and school killing still made her stomach turn. She pulled on latex gloves as the forensic photographer captured the scene from multiple angles. "Victim is Leonard Rives, 48, geometry teacher," said Officer Collins, consulting his notes. "Found by the janitor at approximately 7:20 this morning. 2 stab wounds to the back. Me puts time of death between 10 p.m. and midnight last night." Morales nodded, studying the body without touching it. "Clean wounds. Deliberate. Not frenzied or emotional." She gestured to the desk. "Any sign of his computer?" "Most teachers have laptops these days." "Nothing. Charging cables here, but no device." "Forced entry?" "None that we can find. All exterior doors lock automatically at 6 p.m. Anyone entering after that would need a key card or to be buzzed in." Morales circled the desk, careful not to disturb potential evidence. "So either our victim let his killer in, or it was someone who already had access to the building," Collins finished. Principal Diana Harmon was a composed woman in her early 50s, but today her hands wouldn't stop shaking. She sat in her office across from Detective Morales, a cup of untouched coffee cooling between them. "Mr. Rives taught here for 23 years, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "He was, not exactly well-liked, but respected. A demanding teacher." "Any conflicts with students? Recent disciplinary issues?" Harmon hesitated. "Leonard had high standards. Some students found him harsh. But nothing that would." She shook her head. "Nothing that would lead to this." "What about colleagues?" Any workplace tensions I should know about? No. He kept to himself mostly. Came early, stayed late, rarely attended faculty socials. Morales made a note. I'll need access to his personnel file, class lists, grading records. And I'd like to speak with the staff who saw him last. Of course. Whatever you need. Principal Harmon reached for a tissue. I just can't believe this happened here. At Larkridge. By afternoon, the initial shock had given way to systematic investigation. Students were interviewed in groups, then individually if they'd had recent interactions with Mr. Ives. The school counselor sat in on each session, monitoring the teenagers for signs of trauma or, more crucially, unusual behavior. None stood out as suspicious. Most seemed genuinely shaken, even those who admitted to disliking the strict geometry teacher. He was tough, yeah, said basketball forward Trevor Mills. Gave me a D last semester. But, I deserved it. I didn't study. He called on me even when I didn't raise my hand, whispered sophomore Alicia Chen. It was embarrassing sometimes. But he was just trying to make sure everyone participated. The pattern continued. Strict but fair. Sarcastic but not cruel. Demanding but consistent. No obvious motive emerged. No smoking gun. Detective Morales was reviewing security footage in the conference room when her partner, Detective Wilson, entered with a stack of files. Nothing useful on the cameras, she sighed. Power to the second-floor surveillance was cut sometime after 9 p.m. Deliberate, Wilson said, dropping into a chair. Definitely. Whoever did this knew the layout, knew the systems. She rubbed her eyes. What you got? Something interesting. A parent called the station after hearing about Rives on the news. Melissa Sharp. Her daughter Emily was a student here until last year, when they suddenly transferred to Westridge Academy. Morales straightened. Suddenly. According to Mrs. Sharp, Emily was a straight-A student until she took Rives' advanced geometry class. There was some kind of incident. Emily accused Rives of grade manipulation. In what way? Wilson consulted his notes. She claimed he was changing scores to benefit certain students. When she spoke up, she was told to drop it and move on. The family fought it for a while, then transferred Emily when it became clear the administration wasn't going to act. Did Mrs. Sharp say which students were allegedly benefiting? That's where it gets interesting. She mentioned one name specifically, Jacob Fallon. Morales frowned. Why does that name sound familiar? Because his father is Charles Fallon, president of the school board for the past 8 years. The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. I think we need to speak with Mrs. Sharp in person, Morales said. Melissa Sharp lived in a modest 2-story house 15 minutes from Larkridge. When the detectives arrived, she was waiting on the porch, arms crossed tightly over her chest as if physically holding herself together. I wasn't sure if I should come forward, she began as soon as they were seated in her living room. Family photos lined the mantel, a smiling husband, 2 children, a golden retriever. But when I heard about Mr. Ives, I couldn't stay silent. Tell us about what happened with your daughter, Morales prompted gently. Melissa's eyes darted to a photo of a teenage girl with serious eyes and a tentative smile. Emily was always gifted in mathematics. When she took Mr. Ives' class as a sophomore, she was excited. But about halfway through the semester, she noticed discrepancies. What kind of discrepancies? Test scores that didn't match return papers. Grades entered in the system that were higher than what certain students had earned. At first, she thought maybe she was mistaken. But Emily is methodical. She started keeping track. Wilson leaned forward. And what did she find? That one student in particular seemed to be benefiting, Jacob Fallon. He would receive C's on exams but A's in the gradebook. Once, she saw his test paper on Rives' desk. It was marked with red corrections throughout, but the score at the top read 94%. Did Emily confront Mr. Rives about this? Melissa nodded, twisting a tissue between her fingers. She stayed after class one day. Asked him directly about the discrepancies. He got very cold. Told her she was mistaken, that she should focus on her own academics and drop it and move on. What did Emily do? She went to the principal, Dr. Harmon's predecessor, Mr. Galloway. He seemed concerned at first, promised to look into it. 2 days later, he called us in for a meeting. Said there had been a misunderstanding, that Emily had misinterpreted what she'd seen. And you didn't believe that? No. Because by then, Emily's own grades in the class had mysteriously dropped. An A student suddenly getting C's. It was retaliation, plain and simple. Morales made a note. What happened next? We filed a formal complaint. There was an internal review. Very quiet, very contained. In the end, Emily's transcript was revised, but no action was taken against Rives. We were encouraged to sign an NDA as part of the resolution. Did you sign it? Yes. Melissa looked down. It seemed the only way to protect Emily's future. We transferred her to Westridge the following semester. Mrs. Sharp, Morales said carefully, where was Emily last night between 9 p.m. and midnight? The woman's head snapped up, eyes wide. You can't possibly. She was here. All night. With us. We watched movies until 11, then went to bed. And your husband can confirm this? Yes. And our security system. We have cameras that show no one left the house. Her voice trembled. Detective, my daughter was hurt by what happened, but she would never. I understand, Morales assured her. Standard questions. We have to ask. As they were leaving, Melissa called after them. There were others, you know. Emily wasn't the first to notice. Morales turned. Others who complained about grade manipulation. Yes. Emily did some digging after we decided to transfer. Found at least 2 previous cases, both quietly resolved. Both involving Jacob Fallon. Back at the station, Morales and Wilson dove into school records. It took several warrant requests and some pressure from the district attorney, but eventually, they gained access to the sealed complaints. The pattern was unmistakable. In 2006, a student named Michael Torres had raised concerns about grading discrepancies in Rives' class. The matter was settled with an NDA and a college recommendation letter for Torres. In 2008, another student, Layla Washington, made similar claims. Another NDA, another quiet resolution. Both cases mentioned Jacob Fallon, though never explicitly as the beneficiary of the alleged manipulation. 3 separate incidents, same teacher, same student connection, Wilson said, spreading the files across the conference table. That's beyond coincidence. Morales nodded, studying a photo of Jacob Fallon from the school yearbook. Athletic, confident smile, the look of someone who expected things to go his way. And yet Fallon maintained a near-perfect GPA. Got into Stanford on scholarship. His standardized test scores tell a different story, Wilson pointed out. Above average, but nowhere near exceptional. Not Stanford material. We need to talk to Fallon, Morales decided. Both of them, father and son. But before they could arrange the interviews, a breakthrough came from an unexpected source. A local fisherman called the station, reporting he'd found a laptop in Barrett Pond, about 5 miles outside of town. The device was damaged but potentially recoverable. The serial number matched the one registered to Leonard Rives. The tech team worked through the night, carefully drying the components and attempting to salvage the hard drive. By morning, they had recovered approximately 70% of the data, enough to paint a disturbing picture. In a folder labeled 214 only, private, they found years of correspondence between Rives and various school administrators. Veiled threats, thinly disguised accusations, and carefully documented instances of academic favoritism. At the center of it all was a spreadsheet tracking altered grades dating back a decade. Most of the beneficiaries were athletes or children of faculty and administration. But one name appeared far more frequently than others: Jacob Fallon. The most recent email thread was dated 3 days before Rives' death. From l.rives@larkridgehigh.edu to d.harmon@larkridgehigh.edu subject, this ends now. Diana. I've carried this burden long enough. 10 years of compromising my professional integrity. 10 years of watching undeserving students advance while truly talented ones are overlooked. I can't do it anymore. I'm bringing everything to the board meeting next week. All of it. The altered grades, the covered-up complaints, the systematic favoritism. The pressure from Charles to maintain Jacob's GPA even when he barely showed up for class. If I go down, I'm not going alone. I'm printing it all. Leonard. The response had come 12 hours later. From d.harmon@larkridgehigh.edu to l.rives@larkridgehigh.edu subject, this ends now. Leonard. Please don't do anything rash. We need to discuss this in person. Meet me in your classroom tomorrow evening at 9. No emails, no records, just talk. There are aspects to this situation you're not considering. Diana. We need to bring Principal Harmon back in, Wilson said, reading over the emails. She claimed she hardly knew Rives, but these messages suggest otherwise. And we need to find out where Charles and Jacob Fallon were the night of the murder, Morales added. The investigation accelerated. Diana Harmon, confronted with the recovered emails, broke down in tears. It wasn't supposed to happen like this, she whispered. I just wanted to talk to him, reason with him. Make him understand what was at stake. And what exactly was at stake, Ms. Harmon? Morales pressed. Everything. The school's reputation. The careers of everyone involved. Do you know how many college acceptances would be invalidated if this came out? How many teachers and administrators would lose their licenses? So you met with him that night? Yes. In his classroom. I begged him to reconsider, offered him early retirement with full benefits. But he was adamant. Said he couldn't live with the guilt anymore. Did you kill him, Miss Harmon? The principal's eyes widened. No. God, no. When I left him at 9:30, he was very much alive. Upset, but alive. Can anyone verify your whereabouts after that? I went home. Alone. My husband was out of town. Further interviews revealed more pieces of the puzzle. The school's athletics director admitted to pressuring teachers to maintain player eligibility. The previous principal, now retired in Florida, acknowledged via video call that he had been aware of grade manipulation but had considered it a necessary compromise for the greater good of the institution. Charles Fallon refused to speak without his attorney present. When finally interviewed, he was indignant, dismissive. My son earned every grade he received, he insisted. Leonard Rives was a disturbed individual with a personal vendetta against successful students. Where were you the night Mr. Rives was killed? Morales asked directly. At a board meeting until 8:30, then at the Capitol Grill with colleagues until nearly midnight. At least 20 people can verify my whereabouts. His alibi checked out. Jacob Fallon, now a junior at Stanford, was interviewed via video call. He appeared nervous but maintained he knew nothing about altered grades. Mr. Rives was tough on everyone, he said, eyes darting occasionally off camera. If my grades were good, it's because I studied hard. Did you know about the complaints filed by other students? The allegations that your grades were being artificially inflated? A flicker of something, guilt. Fear. Crossed his face. I heard rumors. But that's all they were. Jealous classmates making excuses for their own mediocrity. His alibi was solid too. Campus security footage confirmed he had been in California at the time of the murder. As the investigation stretched into its second week, public pressure mounted. Parents demanded answers. Students held a candlelight vigil for Mr. Rives, the strict teacher suddenly transformed in death to a principled martyr. The breakthrough came from an unlikely source, Arnold Keene, the janitor who had discovered the body. "There's something you should know," he told Morales during a follow-up interview. "Something I didn't think was important at first." "Go on," she encouraged. "That morning, when I unlocked room 214. It wasn't the first time I'd unlocked it." Morales frowned. "What do you mean?" "The night before, around 10:15, I got a call from Ms. Carter, she's the assistant athletic director. Said she urgently needed to get into Rives' classroom to retrieve some paperwork for an eligibility review. I have master keys, so you let her in?" "Yes." "She seemed agitated. Said she'd lock up when she was done." He twisted his hands. "I didn't think anything of it until I found him the next morning." Lisa Carter, assistant athletic director, age 43, had been at Larkridge for 8 years. Her office walls were covered with team photos and championship pennants. When Morales and Wilson arrived to question her, she was calmly updating a bulletin board with track meet times. "Ms. Carter," Morales began, "we understand you asked Mr. Keene to unlock room 214 the night Mr. Rives was killed." The woman froze, a pushpin hovering inches from the corkboard. "I don't know what you're talking about. Mr. Keene specifically remembers letting you into the room at approximately 10:15 p.m. He's mistaken. I wasn't even at the school that night." But cell tower data told a different story. Lisa Carter's phone had pinged from towers near Larkridge until 10:45 p.m., then near Barrett Pond, where the laptop was found, shortly after 11. A search of her home uncovered a kitchen knife set with one missing piece. The lab confirmed that the wounds on Rives' back matched the missing knife's dimensions. When confronted with the evidence, Carter remained stoic. "You don't understand what was at stake." "Then explain it to us," Wilson said. "Leonard was going to destroy everything. Not just the current students, but years of alumni. My own son got into Princeton 3 years ago with grades that." She faltered. "The fallout would have been catastrophic." "So you killed him?" "I went there to reason with him. To explain what his moral stand would really cost. But he was self-righteous, unyielding. Said he didn't care about the consequences, that the system was corrupt and needed to be exposed." And then something snapped. "I saw him there, so smug in his late career crisis of conscience, willing to burn down decades of work. The knife was just there. From his lunch. On the desk." Lisa Carter was arrested and charged with second-degree murder. But the story didn't end with her confession. The district attorney's office, under intense scrutiny, launched a broader investigation into academic practices at Larkridge. A special committee was formed to review a decade of records. Charles Fallon resigned from the school board, citing health concerns. Principal Harmon took early retirement. Jacob Fallon's Stanford admission came under review. Yet despite all this, no formal charges were filed beyond those against Lisa Carter. No public acknowledgement of systemic corruption was ever made. The school board issued a carefully worded statement. The tragic death of longtime educator Leonard Rives appears to be the result of an individual's actions and is unrelated to institutional operations. We extend our deepest sympathies to Mr. Rives' family and support our student body during this difficult time. Room 214 was completely remodeled over the summer. New paint, new floors, new desks, a new interactive smartboard. The teacher's desk, the one where Rives had died, was donated to a school across the county. Detective Morales filed her final report, noting the case closed but adding a personal observation: while the immediate perpetrator has been identified, questions remain about the culture of institutional protection that may have contributed to creating circumstances where such an act could occur. The new school year began. Life at Larkridge moved on. But students say room 214 still smells faintly of iron, even after a decade. A metallic tang that no amount of industrial cleaner seems to remove completely. And once a year, someone scrawls the word cheater in dry erase marker on the new smartboard. Always before morning classes. Always wiped by first bell. No security camera has ever captured who does it. No fingerprints are ever found. Some say it's Emily Sharp, returning to vindicate her claims. Others say it's the ghost of Leonard Rives himself, haunting the room where justice remains incomplete. The truth, like so many things at Larkridge High, stays buried beneath layers of institutional silence. But in the quiet moments before the morning bell, when the light hits room 214 just right, the shadows seem to whisper questions that still await answers. Who else knew? Who else benefited? Who else was complicit? And how many other schools harbor similar secrets, waiting for someone brave enough, or foolish enough, to expose them?